Welcome to the nav bar. Just jump straight into it.
Yeah, well, I've got
No,
a...
we need to tweet about it.
Yes, I have to do the tweet link. Everyone who's watches this... I know, because we don't publish them. Or maybe we can cut the start, because otherwise it's every time... God.
Every time they can join us for writing a tweet, sharing a tweet, having our synchronized sip of water.
Yeah. Oh, but if someone's subscribed, they would get a ping if they have the bell
they'd
stuff.
already know.
All right. I'll Slack you the tweet so you know.
Okay.
Oh, the YouTube URL.
Excellent.
Going live for a...
And my camera's frozen. Already with the tech issues.
You look frozen, yes.
Yeah. Great.
Is that on your end or it's Ecamm? Ecamm never fails.
Yeah, no, I think it's my end. My end always fails.
I love that the nav bar has the in the handle, so you don't have to type the before the handle.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. ThinkMill does the same. It's the ThinkMill. Most of the time it works nicely in a sentence.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to rejoin and see if this fixes the stuff. Oh, no, I'm getting beach balls. Maybe everything else is broken. It doesn't like thinking about recording audio. Oh, no, I'm moving again. Very strange. Very, very strange. Welcome to the Technical Difficulties podcast, where we live stream fixing
You're back.
our
You're
technical
moving.
problems. Yeah,
What
it
have
just
you-
magically fixed itself. I don't know. Which is probably more worrying.
Yeah. It's like a bug. You know it's a bug, but it works, and you're like,
Yeah.
it should not work. All right, I tweeted the tweet.
Tweeted to the...
I'll skiing puppies and school holidays. That's a pretty cool title. All right, I slacked you.
Excellent.
But yeah, I thought we could have a tiny looking back at our first 10 episodes, because I mean it's not 100, but it's a first milestone.
Yeah, I love it.
And as long as we don't bury a specific software that we tried to use that didn't work.
Oh no, we can talk about that as well. That's one of my highlights.
Yes.
We can talk a little bit about it. Maybe we can
Yeah.
not name said technology. We could just name the good one that now works.
Yeah. We just definitely mentioned there was a bit of churn with like figuring out how to record our audio and video and stuff, and then with the prospect of streaming as well.
It's wild.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Simon, are you ready to go?
I think so.
Have
This
you
is
had your
pretty
synchronized
chill.
sip of water?
I did not. We gotta do
All
this.
right, let's do it. Everyone who's in the chat as well, you need to get a sip of water ready. You ready? Go.
Get the right angle.
We should do
Okay.
a super cut of every single synchronized
Oh, that'd be
water
great.
sip.
That would be a really cool clip, yeah. And it's pretty much the same. We just wear different stuff. And
Yeah.
oh, that's the first time I see the grass behind you so clearly. Like,
Oh, yeah. It's
Looks
very
really nice.
vibrant today, isn't it? Oh, no, I'm bending the wrong way. Look at that.
yeah, it's lush.
Yeah. It's currently raining and has been raining for
Yeah.
a couple of days now. So everything's looking very, very well drank.
Yeah, it's springy sprung.
Yeah.
And you still have the blue light, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I've got part of a curtain. Kind of looks weird, half shaped, but
Everything
it's
we do now is our open bar section. So if we start, then it's part of the. Yeah,
yeah.
kinda. Yes.
Yeah.
Where my notes? I need my notes. I'll put it down there. Is there anyone joining live? Oh, 2 people.
Yeah.
Is
We've
that
got
you
Be
and me?
Silent saying, yep, I'm here. Hanging out.
Hanging out. Oh my god, I've lost the window between two monitors. I dropped down. What? I dropped it exactly between the two monitors and now it's like stuck. My god. All right, abort. I'm gonna have to
All right,
drag
everyone
it.
go home.
Yeah,
We're done here.
Show's cancelled.
Thanks for watching. Tell your friends about the show. Like and subscribe.
All the good
Hit
stuff.
that.
I don't even need notes. Why do I try to drag my notes under?
I don't know. We're just going straight.
This episode is sponsored by Popo Cream for Simon's nose.
And cold and flu tablets.
Yes, I did that too.
And strepsils.
And JavaScript for no other reasons than it's on
Ooh.
my desk. West Bus.
Yeah, I'm rocking
And basketball.
I'm rocking the West Bus black on black JS.
Oh yeah.
T.
Sweet.
So there you go.
Black on black is
Sponsored
good.
by West Bus.
Yes, send us money, Wes. All right.
Hopefully he's not joining us live. Hopefully he'll never see it.
Oh yeah, he will. Watch it now. Well, I just need the comments because I want to. If there's comments, I want to comment the comments. You know.
You know.
Be silent is here.
Is the
Okay,
other person you, Simon? Or is the other person me?
I've got the YouTube tab open. Yes, always.
Okay. In one of our episodes, it went down to 0, so not even you were watching while we were recording.
Yeah.
Even you bailed halfway through the
I was
episode.
like, I can't listen to this. This is Simon. This Simon guy keeps talking and half through his, and I just remember and my puppy and all right, let's go. Let's do it. Then
All
we
right.
can talk.
Welcome to the Nav Bar, a podcast where we help you navigate the web and raise the bar for your content creation. My name is John Myers. I'm a developer advocate from Superbase.
And I'm Simon Vrashley Otis, a designer, developer, content creator, and all sorts of things living in Sydney, Australia. So this episode is going to be pretty casual. We both in the middle of school holidays, and being parents, it means kids are at home. I also happen to have lots of puppies at home that are really, really, really big. They're leaving at the end of this week, so they're at the peak chaos potential for in terms of like house background noises. You might hear some of them. So what we thought we'd do, also because we've published the 10th episode of the Nav Bar yesterday, which is a pretty cool milestone, I thought we could do a quick reflection on what these first 10 episodes felt for both of us, like what we've learned, what we expected, if we would do it again, stuff like this. And then have, being on holiday, I myself went skiing, so we have some pretty cool open bar discussions to go through. So how about that, John? Just a casual episode where we hang out, which is kind of what this podcast is anyway.
Yeah, that sounds great. And if you are joining us live, definitely post any questions that you have for myself or Simon in the comments, and you can be a part of it live. And if
You
you're
can
listening
stir
later,
the discussion.
if you're listening later, then you should have joined us live. And you should join us every week live because we stream this out on YouTube every week. So go and check out the Navbar YouTube channel and like and subscribe and notification, do all the things. And you can get notified when we're going live to hang out and ask us questions live. But yeah, it has been a chaotic week already. My kids are not quite at the age where they would be at school, and then school holidays affects us. But there being so many public holidays recently, they couldn't go to daycare anywhere. And so, yeah, we have also had a lot more kid days. And I did take holidays last week, and we were planning on going to the beach. And then I ended up getting sick as well. I ended up getting bronchitis and just spending the time not at the beach hanging out. We went over the weekend, but spent most of the intended time that I was going to have off being sick, which sucks.
It does suck. Yeah, so that's the thing, even if you always have your kids at home, so it doesn't really change that much. But I don't know what's your neighbor situation, but in the area I live, every kid is on holiday, so you can hear them jump in the pools and do backyard stuff, and everyone does renovations and mowing the lawn and stuff, and it's complete chaos all around. So first I was like, oh, I just gotta find a window and tell my wife to take the kids and try to do a professional podcast. And then I thought, if the title of the podcast is about school holiday and skiing and puppies and stuff, then the disclaimer about anything you hear behind my voice is it's implicitly accepted, because that's the deal.
Well, this could be our first episode where we have official guests, and they can just be your kids and your wife and come and join us on the episode.
I might bring them in if they show up.
Yeah.
My son is gonna freeze and like, is it live? I can't. And my daughter will say, give me the mic, put a music on, and she'll do a performance.
Awesome.
She loves the spotlight.
Have they been listening to the Navbar podcast so far?
The first one, I was in the car and I said, hey, look, something cool. And I said, hey, Google, play the Navbar on Spotify. And then it started playing and there was my name and your name on it.
Yeah.
And they thought it was a joke, and they're like, oh, how did you do this? And then I start speaking and they recognize my voice, and they were so proud and happy. And I think they listened to almost the whole episode.
Oh, wow.
And then
that's awesome.
Because they were so stoked. And then the next week it started playing, and they're like, oh no, not that. Can we...
Oh, this is a weekly thing?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm out.
the novelty complete, like the second thing started and they were like, can we just change, like, so now they've never listened to anything since.
My daughter, who's 3 and a bit, almost 3.5, she actually like loves it, or she says she loves it. She loves the intro, and now she like she'll sometimes repeat it back to me. She was having a bath the other day, and then she just started saying, welcome to the Navbar, a podcast where, and I was just like, what are you doing? Oh, that's amazing. So, yeah. And so she's very good at imitating my intro, and also yours. She can almost pronounce your last name.
Yes. Yeah, my daughter also, every time I say I'm recording a podcast, they're like, are you talking to John Myers today? They have no idea who you are, but they heard your name and they're like,
that famous guy from the podcast.
Another podcast legend that lives on Spotify on the screen.
Yeah. It does look very professional, popping up on Spotify next to all the other podcasts.
Yeah, it feels good.
So,
yes,
we wanted to go through what we have, what we've learned, what's been great about recording this podcast, what have been our favorite times so far. Should we start off by recapping what episodes we have done so far?
Yeah. I'll try, like, without looking at notes. It's actually interesting exercise. I know that before we even recorded, we were like, okay, let's have a bank of episodes. And being a little bit nervous going live for the first time, I think we tried to get the stuff where it's in our wheelhouse and we're comfortable with. So I think we started about how to create good screencasts and videos, how to actually create better video content as content creators, which is something we both... is that correct? Is that how we start?
That is correct. That is the first episode. I've got the notes up here. So now it's become a quiz to see whether Simon can remember the exact sequence of all of the episodes. But yes, that was a good one to get started with. And it was funny because we were talking about like a lot of kind of technical stuff about doing videos, and also just like some motivational stuff about like getting over the hurdle of pressing record.
Yeah.
But that did take us 4 weeks. We had 4 weeks of not actually recording an episode. Like we got together like this and we tried to set up all the technology. We tried to get everything working. And we had 4 weeks where we didn't actually record an episode properly.
That's right.
Until we finally, on the 5th week, we finally recorded our first episode of the Navbar.
I forgot about this.
We had these grand ideas of like, we'll record like 2 or maybe even 3 episodes a week, and we'll build up this big bank. And then when, life happens, when school holidays happen and things like that, we'll have this big backlog of stuff that's just slowly coming out. And so far we haven't managed to be more than like a week ahead. Because turns out life is very busy, and work is very busy, and school holidays are crazy time.
Yeah, we did get a couple of weeks ahead, and then almost like feet against the wall. Like if we don't record something today and publish today, then we skip a week. So it's been interesting. But yeah, I think 10 episodes is already a good amount to realize what we can tweak or fiddle with to make it a bit more sustainable for both of us. John and I, and especially John at the start, kept reminding me this should remain fun and something we stress free, and we not like it's not a grind work and shit, there's the episode tomorrow, we need to record and stuff. So yeah, we've been thinking of different ways to make sure that this remains fun, and so far for me it's been really fun. Like I've been looking forward every week to record. um
Yeah.
I have a tendency to be really nervous before doing anything public speaking related. So even if it's not like we are live now, but even if we were not, it's still you press record and I'm like, oh, like my heart start racing a bit. And I found myself with these 10 episodes, it's been incredibly empowering to get through that. And now I feel I'm much more natural and less worried. Like the first couple of episodes, I was like, oh, it's gonna go, it has to be perfectly spoken and recorded because it's going live. And then we've got the video recording, and I was like, I set everything, framing, and I was super tight. And I like that now. At some point, episode 8 or 7 or something, we said, oh, do you know what? Let's just keep the windows open. It feels more healthy for us. And we actually look also a bit more like friendly. It's not like this perfectly controlled lighting system. So I like how within 10 episodes, I noticed on my end, it got much more closer to that thing where it should be stress-free and fun and like literally looking forward to producing this versus like we must produce a professional podcast and this is our reputation on the line. And like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, I think it was very, very similar for me, especially like just doing the intro, like saying the first part of the intro, like throughout the first probably like 3 or 4 episodes, there were probably like 5 or 10 takes per time that we tried to get started with it. And just like get through that first intro because it needs to be so perfect. And we did kind of toy with the idea of like, well, what if we just record that once and then we just jump into the episode? But then I feel like the start of the episode would be the bit where it's difficult to get started. And now that I think something that helped a lot with getting the intro to be a lot easier to just say straight away. Firstly, all of the practice that we've now had, but also just making it a little bit silly. And so having the like navigate the web and raise the bar, like that kind of stuff, adding in those fun little silly bits kind of kicks it off with the right tone where it makes it a little less serious and a little more fun. And then by the time we get to explaining the topic, we're already kind of on a little bit of a roll and can keep going with it. So, yeah, I don't know if it's just the practice or whether it's like the, making it a little bit sillier, but I feel like it's much easier to just, I think we have very little stuff that we actually need to edit out now. Like usually once we get started, there's only maybe a couple of points throughout where we need to, some piece of technology dies or we, say a big loud swear word that we want to edit out, or the puppy dogs are barking a little too loud in the background. And then
That's the big one.
we decide we need to edit a little part. But yeah, the amount that we're editing now has massively reduced over 10 episodes. At the start, it was basically like every sentence was like putting together a YouTube video. And putting all that work into it.
Yep. And I think you nailed it. Like adding a bit of humor or silliness, quirkiness is the best. It's a really good solution to when you're a bit stressed or nervous. Like if you tap into the humor or fun or silliness, it becomes much more easy to then try to have like the perfect intro where you like, all right, there would be some background music and I just come in and just like trying to overproduce the thing. So today we just we met, we had like a 1-2 minutes chat, and then we're like, you know what, let's go live and start. And yeah, I feel like the first few weeks I needed almost 45 minutes of like prepping and drinking too much water because I'm nervous, and then I have to go to the bathroom because of the water, and then drinking more, and just like trying to procrastinate hitting record because of like the stress. And now I'm like, whatever. And I do feel, honestly, if I put myself in the listener's shoes, I think it's more interesting and entertaining when it's authentic like this than when it's like polished, perfect. Like we're not a corporation that makes premium quality. Although the quality is really good, but it's just if you're natural and you're your own self. That's what we were talking about when doing the episode on being. We talked about it in multiple ones. I think what is developer advocacy and how to create better content and all these things. The topic was always just try to bring your personality and yourself. And then you engage with the audience much more than if you just try to read off a script and be too uptight, because it gets cold.
And that's your differentiator as well. Like
Yeah.
You're a different person to the other people, and so having letting some of your personality come through really helps to make you unique and interesting, and following an actual person instead of just a company or a corporate account. Yeah. So yes, our first episode was indeed how to record a good video. So do you remember any good tips that came out of this one? What was your favorite thing to go through in this episode?
My favorite thing is what I just mentioned. Just hit record and produce a little bit of content. Start small and just do something and then publish it, or say, hey, I'm going to record today something and upload it later. And then you're committed. Your foot is in the door and you have no way to back out of it. And yeah, that helped me. And even when I gave that tip that I already knew, it still helped me with the podcast. So I think the best part is to just start and not worry about the equipment, which is another episode we did. Like start with just a good mic to have like a nice sound, which is important, and then fiddle around with the rest later. But yeah, just start somewhere and put it out there. And most of the time you'll have at least some encouraging feedback that just keeps you going forward.
For sure. I think that was, probably my favorite tip from that one was, even though we were talking about how to make a good quality video, video was actually like the kind of least important factor there. It was like more of the episode was around like designing an interesting story for the video, like coming up with an interesting example and kind of taking people along on this journey. And then, the technology part that you need to probably optimize more is audio rather than video. And so, it's kind of somewhat intentional that the name of the episode is how to record good video, but really there was like no focus on actual video technology there. It was all about how to create an engaging, good quality video that people are going to want to watch all the way through, which then took us to our next episode, which you just hinted there. Number 2 was what gear do you need to create content? And so this was where we went through what you not what you should have, not what you should aim to have at the end, but what more reasonable, feasible ways can you slowly upgrade your setup, and what bits should you upgrade before other bits, to be able to incrementally improve the quality of your content creation rather than trying to have this perfect setup straight off the bat. So is there anything you remember from that one that stuck out for you?
Yeah, there's something that we both mentioned. Although it's great to have really good lights and really good camera and stuff for the end product when you produce something very professional and like premium, but there's something that we both mentioned is every piece of equipment you add kind of trickles down and have side effects on everything else that you own. So if you add an extra light, now you need to move the other light, so you have this 2-point lighting. And then maybe you realize, but the camera would work better here because there's the wall in my office, and you start moving desks around. And yeah, we both had that thing where we added a piece of gear that we thought we needed or we wanted, and maybe we were right. But the thing you neglect is that everything is going to churn around your setup because of that new piece of equipment. My example was like the teleprompter, which I love and I'm using now. But it meant the camera was sitting on the other side on the left. And then with the shape of the teleprompter, it didn't fit. So I literally moved all my setup the other way, moved the background shelf to the other corner. And I changed everything because of a thing that I just thought you put it around the camera and you look at the camera and that's what it does. And that's what it does. But everything that it forces you to do on the side is something that, I find interesting that we both noted the same thing. And one more thing related to this, the other day, because the pups are old enough to be outside, so I was outside working with them, so I just had my laptop, and I jump with ThinkMill, which I'm consulting for every Tuesday at 10 a.m., 10:30. There's a whole all hands team meeting. It's called Team Week. And usually I join here and I've got my thing and I'm looking with my notes and stuff. And it's just a Zoom call. And then somehow I'm using these dual stuff where the faces are on the teleprompter. So I look at them and then the share screen comes to another display. And when I did that Zoom call from outside, it was so refreshing to have just one laptop with the camera in front. And I didn't have to fiddle about anything or where's what. And I was like, man, it's so simple and pleasant to just have one laptop. No mouse, no extra keyboard, no nothing, just the laptop. And I was like, I worked the whole afternoon and I was super productive outside with just that. So sometimes going back to the basics is great. But when you create content, it's good to have some solid gear like for the actual production.
Yeah, likewise. I love if I'm like working through an example for a video that I might create or just trying to do some planning for it. Yeah, I really like that idea of taking the laptop and going and sitting somewhere else, being in a different environment, and like I don't need all of this stuff set up. I don't need the whole set around me. And yeah, I always find that I'm much more creative when I go somewhere else and take a break from this space that I do all my other work from.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very nice. And yeah, in that episode, I really liked, as I mentioned before, that idea of an incremental upgrade path. I think both of us really focus on, like with the content that we create, not creating this super advanced content that only a very small subset of people are going to really understand. I think we really like taking a complex topic, but then breaking it down in a really simple to understand way. And so I think that's that same idea of, rather than having these assumptions that someone is going to understand all of these pieces and then you're just showing them the end part, I think that idea of having this incremental path is similar to the way that we create content, where it's like, how do we make it accessible, as accessible as possible to the most number of people, and not say, here's a super non-feasible way that you can get to content creation. You need this microphone, you need this camera, and you need this lens and this lighting setup. Looking at how you can just get started as easily as possible, as cheaply as possible, and then how you can incrementally improve that over time.
Yeah.
So then, sorry, you go.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something. Like, part of what I'm doing at ThinkMill right now is helping the team prepare to create more content. And like, there's one person that just started as a developer advocate, and I'm just like mentoring that person, kind of like giving tips of what I've learned. And I've created this audio visual channel in Slack for anyone who's got questions about light and stuff. And almost always, like, people ask, oh, what should I start with? And I do the exact thing that we said, like, just get a mic, a cheap, good dynamic mic that rejects all the audio and captures you. And that's it. Just start with that. And then you can see there's always this kind of rabbit hole of people, oh, but maybe just a light, or like getting too much stuff. And the discussion almost always steers to, no, produce content first, like get in the habit of recording yourself, or like even writing a blog post, like just put some content out there. This is how you get started. It's not by getting the good gear and then still being scared to press record. And the easy part of my job is to tell what mic or what stuff they should get. The hard part is to convince them to actually, hey, that thing you just said in the Zoom call, it's a recorded thing. Just like put a little polish around it, just publish that little clip. And yeah, like just producing stuff and getting in a mindset of working in public and producing content is the hard part, not the gear.
Totally. Yeah. So then that flowed nicely into our next two-parter episode, where we went through all of the ridiculous gear that we have acquired over years of doing this. And so, in that episode, it was a two-parter where we basically just went like trading off me and then Simon and then me and then Simon, talking through all of those different like pieces of gear that we had. So if you're interested in what we actually use for all of our content creation, that's a good episode to go back and check out. We went through cameras, our different mics and audio setup, lights, our computer, any accessories like screens and things. anything that's just generally in our environment, like soundproofing and things like that. And then any software that we use. So that was that was planned to be a single episode, and then turned into a 2-part episode because we
own too much stuff.
and not just owning too much stuff, like we have a story behind every
Yes.
single piece of equipment that we bought, and so that's a really interesting episode to just go back and listen to like why we chose the pieces that we chose, or like what other things we tried throughout that process, and what was good and bad about different pieces of gear. So that's a very good episode to go and check out if you're interested about gear and what sort of stuff we use. Did you have a favorite piece of gear from that episode?
My stand-up desk is probably the most expensive and the most useful piece of equipment. It goes totally against the whole thing of being light and just a laptop, but because when I have that production stuff, everything is mounted on the desk. I thought if the desk itself is wobbly, everything will wobble in the video, and wobble makes also sound that goes in the mic. So I'm so happy I went with a really premium stand-up desk. That's my thing.
Nice. Yeah, I don't know if I mentioned in that episode, but I kind of built this standing desk, which is quite solid. If I rock it too much, it will bounce around, but just generally like typing and doing normal stuff doesn't seem to shake anything around, and everything is attached to this desk. But yeah, I bought a like standing desk legs.
Yeah.
Or I bought an old standing desk that wasn't very good, and then the legs were quite solid, but the piece that was on it was just, a piece of soft laminated wood that just wasn't very good. And so I got this nice piece of hardwood and attached the legs on myself, which is very nice. I reckon my favorite, actually not my favorite piece of gear that I had during the episode, but since the episode, or since that 2-parter, you actually convinced me to get a teleprompter. And that the next Superbase launch week, which is like a way that we release features at Superbase. Every like 3 or 4 months, we do a big launch week, and we drop a new feature each week. And being in the developer advocacy side of things, it was there was a lot of content that I needed to create in a really short amount of time to show off the features that we were launching each day. And so I chose that as like the perfect time for me to try out a teleprompter, and it was just amazing. Like I feel like that, like the amount of time it saved me by like just nailing those takes where I was doing like a talking head piece, like an introduction talking to the camera, being able to have a teleprompter and stay on track with what I was trying to say, especially with those like really short videos that needed to be really precise and talking about features that we were launching. That teleprompter just like saved me so much time, because usually I would kind of weigh up either if I needed to nail the perfect take talking to the camera, then I would just try and memorize and talk to the camera and try and at least get like 1 or 2 or maybe 3 takes that I could put together where I got through the entire intro that I needed to talk about. And then even those edit points, they still like, it dug deep that I needed to have those edit points. I would always watch it back and just be frustrated that I needed to edit those things, because you can notice it stands out, at least as the person that's editing it. It definitely stands out. And then the other option is, if I just need to get it done quickly and I don't have time to spend that much time re-recording the intro, I just have a script next to the camera on like a screen, like I usually go a vertical screen and put it next to the camera, as close as possible to the camera, but you can still see my eyes like darting across to read the script or get prompts of each paragraph. And so then when I'm editing that drives me insane that I can see my eyes dart across. And so when I got the teleprompter, like I think like pretty much every video I nailed in maybe 1 or 2 takes, because I didn't have that extra overhead of things that were in the back of my head about what I needed to needed to focus on. I was just looking straight into the camera and just going through the script which I had prepared. So that was a game changer for those kinds of videos, or those kinds of intros and outros.
Yeah, it's definitely a great tool. I think after this, going off top, I don't have any notes, but I think we jumped into our own stories. Your story first and my story later.
Incorrect, Simon. Incorrect. So close. The next episode was everything. The next episode was everything you need to know about the Edge. And so this episode, we went through everything edgy, edge, which, if you're not familiar, is a collection of servers that run as close as possible to your users. And this was very on topic for an Egghead course that I had just released, where we look at caching Supabase data at the edge using Cloudflare workers and KV storage. So yeah, this episode we went through a quick summary of what the edge is, and then different types of data fetching, and how we, like, a little bit of a history as to how we got to the point where we're looking at caching things at the edge. We looked at different caching options in the browser, at the CDN level, or in-memory caches running like something like Redis running on a server. And then, we went through a quick explanation as to why Supabase and Cloudflare pair so nicely together to solve that problem. Was there anything you remember learning, anything that stood out to you in that episode?
Yeah, I learned a lot. I first of all, I wasn't too sure what the edge was, and I think I tried to replay it to you, and you were like, yeah, you actually nailed it. It's like the CDN for like more programmy things, like backend services. And the other thing was the KV storage. I find it really interesting how you could have that layer in between that made it super fast. I know why I got the answer wrong before. We actually recorded your story before, but because you were doing this course, that was perfect to release the Edge episodes before. But in my head, I was like, because I can see myself, we went all the episodes that are easy to produce for us. So what we're good at, making videos and gear, buying gear. We're very good at this.
We're very good at purchasing gear.
And then talking about our own stories, that was like all the like low-hanging fruit. Like, it's easy to talk without much preparation, and even if you're a bit nervous. But yeah, I really enjoyed that episode on the edge. That was mostly you speaking and me sponging off and learning, which was great. And after that, we jumped in both I know for sure my story was, which I thought it was going to be a double episode, but it ended up being a single, an hour and a half episode, pretty long one. I talk a lot in general, and then if it's about my life story, like I obviously know it quite well, I can go for apparently hours. And I really enjoyed learning your story, because we mentioned that we kind of met online not long before starting this podcast, so there's not much that we know about each other. Like, it's not like we grew up going to the same school and like grew up in totally different parts of the world. And although our stories have a lot of similarities, we never really knew each other until like the start of this year, or even like a few weeks before doing the podcast. So I enjoyed learning about you, and I think you enjoyed learning about me as well.
I definitely did. Yeah, it was really interesting to see those parallels. Like, we didn't do any like preparation beforehand, like talking to each other about, how we were going to go through those episodes, or but yeah, it was really interesting that there were just so many similarities. Even though we weren't like even in the same country at the same time and stuff, we were still kind of thinking about the same things and doing similar things. It's very interesting. It was just, I think the reason that your episode was so long is you just have such a rich, interesting history to talk through. And so it was really, really fun learning about what got you to developer advocacy. And it's very cool.
You don't even know 10% of my life.
So that was actually part one. We said that it was not going to be a 2-part episode, but it's actually a 10-part episode. But we'll slowly drip feed out the rest of Simon's origin.
Yeah, I think we trimmed down the last 17 hours because we just didn't want to overwhelm the listener. So it's only 1 hour and a half that we published. So there's a bunch more.
Yeah, we've got lots more to come.
And so after that.
What do you reckon we went into?
I think, we're still staying in the wheelhouse, but running out of like personal or non-coding stuff. I know you did the episode on the edge, which is one thing you were very interested in. I know that my wheelhouse in terms of coding is Tailwind CSS. So I guess the next episode was the Tailwind CSS episode.
It was indeed. And was this one
a triple
planned to be a 1-part or a 2-part or a 3-part episode?
It was definitely a 2-parter, and potentially could have been even 3 because the 2 parts were pretty beefy. Turns out I've got a lot of things to say. And I think because I worked part of the core team, there was some interesting insights. And even then, even the open bar segment of that episode was another like half an hour of me rambling about things, probably puppies.
Yeah. Yeah, see, that it actually... So we recorded it all just as one piece, obviously. We kind of... I think we're still trying to find where the... how long a topic takes to go through, or if we have, 5 talking points, how long it takes us to actually get through it. I think obviously that's something that we'll tighten up over time. But all of these ones that have been 2-part episodes were intended to be a single episode, and then we were just so interested in talking about it, so passionate about the topic, or just had so much to go through that we weren't anticipating at the start. Because every episode always feels like if we pick a topic, we're like, well, we're just going to explain what it is and then we'll be done. And so every topic that we pick, like, it feels like it's only going to be, if you add the intro and our open bar section, it's only going to be like a 10 or 15 minute episode. But then when you get started talking about it and we remember these other things, these other interesting, experience that we've had with that particular thing, like, so much comes to mind as we're talking about it, probably because we just enjoy catching up and chatting each week, and so it kind of is just like a conversation that we're having over drinks or over lunch or whatever, and so we always end up just going longer and longer, and so those 2-parter episodes were intended to be single episodes, but just because we had so much to go through, or we looked at the time and we're like, oh right, we've been going for 2 hours now, that's probably not just a single episode. And so I quite like those episodes because it just shows how much we enjoy doing this each week, that we don't even realize, like, we're not trying to stick to a particular time schedule or make sure that we're wrapped up within half an hour or whatever, because it's just fun hanging out. And so we hang out for as long as it makes sense, and then we turn it into episodes.
Yep. And I fear that the more casual and comfortable we get, the more we'll be talking and the longer the episode will go.
Every episode will be a 10-parter.
Yeah, it's also the episodes we picked so far up to now where, like I mentioned, in our wheelhouse, that was either about us or about what we've been mostly spending our time learning and focusing on. So I think as we move towards the future episodes, or maybe if we have guests or if we have questions from the audience, it becomes a little bit, not harder, but it's more likely that we won't have 45 minutes of like off the top stuff we thought about for years on this topic, and it might like tidy up a length a little bit. But yeah, like one of the side benefits of having long episodes is that it buys us an extra week, like we were talking at the start about trying to keep these podcasts fun and stress-free. So when we do a double episode, we're like, well, that's actually 2 weeks worth of content, which is kind of nice. We don't do it on purpose, but the result, the outcome is actually nice.
Yeah, and the Tailwind one was quite interesting as well, as to where we kind of cut it, because I don't, like, unintentionally, there was a whole section about like what is Tailwind and explaining what Tailwind is and the different aspects that are cool. And then there was this nice chunk where we talked about like your time on the core team and why you're no longer on the core team. So if you want to go back and listen to episode 2 of what is... No, I'm joking. But it was really nice that there were kind of those different themes that we could cut it. And so it was more about Tailwind itself as a product, and then your experience with Tailwind and working on the core team, and that kind of, I guess, like that time at Tailwind fed into our next episode. What was number 10, Simon?
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, our number 10 was what we have learned from both our experiences for about a year or so of being full-time developer advocates and content creators. So I think the topic was kind of like, what is developer advocacy, but it was also from a lens of what we've learned doing this full-time and our reflection and pros and cons on the topic. Did I nail that one?
You did. You absolutely nailed it. Number 10, solid. What is developer advocacy? And yeah, this was, as you said, quite an interesting episode where we talked through like what it is, but then also our experience, and not just the positives, some of the negatives. And so, yeah, it was a good episode to even just to reflect myself, because the reason that that I thought this would be a good episode to do is that I had only been doing, well, it's taken us a while to record the episode, but at the point where I thought we should do the episode was when I had just reached doing developer advocacy for 1 year. And so it was a really nice process just for myself to go back and reflect on like the things that I actually had learned. Developer advocacy tends to be quite a busy, constant role where there's just a lot of stuff on fire all the time. And so it was nice to take some time and take a step back and really reflect on like how much I actually have learned and I don't know. It still feels like it's my first week in developer advocacy and I'm trying to work it out. So it's nice to like reflect on all of the things that I have actually learned along the way.
It is a thing when you work as a developer advocate, you touch on so many new topics and areas of work that even after a year. And actually today, just then before recording, I saw on Twitter Hassan from Vercel just reached 1 year, and he did like a Twitter thread of all the things he's done in this year at Vercel, and started a in-person meetup and then did some community stuff, and like the next, like there was so many, like he did a thread and you're like, oh my God, you did all this in 1 year. And it's kind of how it feels also for both of us, I feel. Like at Tailwind Labs, I started doing Tailwind UI components, and then I did a live stream podcast type thing that didn't last too long, but it was great. And then it turned into making videos, which is why I kind of stopped doing the live thing. I started doing full-time video content creation. And yeah, that in within a year, it's like a lot of new things with new... when you have that comfort zone and you push a bit past it and you constantly do that, you usually end up in a great place.
Yeah, for sure. So then, I guess that's all the episodes that we've done, but something that I really liked that kind of span out of this was this live stream series, which I've done I think I did 3 streams. So I did one on just creating a remix application, and like the idea was to build a website for the navbar, and it was kind of taking some of the stuff that we've done episodes about, so some of the stuff about the edge, and basically creating a system that's very similar to what we talked about in that episode, where we have episodes that are sitting in a KV store cache that we can request through a Cloudflare worker and then display in a Remix application. And so because we keep all of the notes for all of our shows, all of our ideas for different episodes in a big Notion database, it seemed like a really good idea to pull those out and display them in a Remix application. So the first stream looked at building a Remix application, making a request to the Notion API, getting back those results, and then displaying them on the page. And then that turned out to be quite a non-performant thing, or at least the way that I did it was not super performant. And so I felt like it's a really good example that represents a real world problem. And so then in the second stream looked at building a Cloudflare Workers and KV storage caching layer. So the Remix application makes a request to essentially a cache. And then if that value is already cached, then it can just respond straight away with that episode data. And if it's not there, then it can go off to the Notion API and get those fresh results and then cache them so the next person doesn't need to wait for it. And then in the third episode, I decided to overcomplicate things and jump in the deep end with GraphQL and built a GraphQL Yoga server, or kind of refactored the Cloudflare worker to be a GraphQL server. And so then I could send a GraphQL query or mutation to that caching layer, and then again either get the results back really quickly from the cache or go and get them from the Notion API. And so there are a couple more episodes coming soon. One will be on creating a scheduled task to be able to refresh the cache, because at the moment that cache goes and gets that data once from the Notion API, but then it never goes back. If it has that data, that's what it sends back from the cache. So looking at how to invalidate that and go and grab fresh results, maybe just every day or something like that. And then the last part will be actually like pushing it to production and making the website live. Oh, and then there's another episode I want to do on building a way for people to ask questions. So it'll be... we'll have some kind of like ask a question box thing, nice. Some kind of input where you can put in something that you would like us to do an episode on, or just a question that you have about tech in general. And then we can kind of put together either those questions can turn into full episodes if there's enough to go through, or we could take a collection of those questions and just have an episode dedicated to answering questions from the goodie bag. What did you call it? Was it the goodie bag? The grab bag?
The mailbag, the goodie bag.
Mailbag, yeah.
Yeah, I had a cooler name last time. I forgot. But yeah,
go back and listen to our previous episodes to find out the better name that Simon gave that feature.
What I found really cool about these series of streams is, first of all, it kind of demonstrate in a real world scenario the things you were talking about in the Edge episodes, like hitting a database and then, oh, it's actually slow. We don't want to fetch this every single time, every request, and then having this KV storage layer. I found it really awesome. And I watched part of the streams and I was like, he explained it to me and now I can see it in action and it makes so much sense. And I love that this project is now kind of like the playground for this. This is the website of the podcast, so it's like a real project, but you can start doing things and trying new things that we talk about in the podcast. I like that what you just said, like having a box for questions is something we wanted to ask people. Hey, do you have a topic you want to hear? And you can do that on Twitter and then manually paste it in the column in Notion, but doing it something that directly captures the submission and then goes into a database in Notion. It's awesome. And I'm looking forward to myself take this for a spin as well and do some styling. We have this intentional strategy of shipping live the website that looks complete garbage because it has all the backend infrastructure and it has the data, but it looks very minimal.
John's complete garbage attempt at styling a website.
Well, no,
just dumping out the pretty printed JSON blob on the screen.
Yeah, so John set up Tailwind, but actually hasn't tried to make it look. I just was like, oh, Simon can do that part because the Tailwind guy. And I think it's pretty cool if it goes live like this. It again, what I said at the start of the episode is like, announce you're going to publish a video and then you have to do it. So if the site is out there and it's unstyled, I'm more likely to go and live stream some styling episodes than if it was not published and I was like, oh, when I've got time, I'll do these episodes and then we can publish it because it looks good. So kind of commit yourself publicly to doing this. And I'm really looking forward to doing some styling, those streams, live streaming, and coding while I type is something I want to get better at. And it's being able to do this on a real project that is meaningful to us is super cool.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. I've learnt pretty much everything that I know about Tailwind from your videos, so I'm looking forward to seeing this really nice, a project that I'm really familiar with because it's something that I will have built up to that point. It'll be really interesting watching the direction that you take it. And
you'll have that same real life project and the stuff I explained about Tailwind, like arbitrary values and stuff. You'll see them in a real context, and that's when it clicks. Like, okay, I knew about this concept or topic, but seeing it applied in my thing that makes sense to me because it's my website, like that's when it becomes crystal clear.
Yeah, and so anyone out there that wants Simon to do free work for you, all you have to do is build a terrible website and then send him a link, and he will jump in and do all of the styling for you for free.
If it's live and it's not looking good, and there's a time pressure to make it look good.
Yeah. It's his responsibility to make it look good. Yeah. All right, so I think that's everything that we had planned or didn't have planned. That's everything that we wanted to go through with a summary of our episodes and things that we've learned up until now, things that we've everything that we've learned about making a podcast. Is there anything else you wanted to go through about the process of making a podcast?
I just think I'll give you credit. You reached out initially and suggested that idea, and I was I just had stopped working with Tailwind Labs, and I was like considering what I need to do to be financially sustainable and what I wanted to do. And my answer was like, oh, I'd love to, but right now I feel like I should do less rather than more. And then I was like, damn, this is actually something I've considered many times. And I'm so happy I did it because all the procrastination things you think about, oh, it's going to be a lot of work and stressful and stuff. All of this went out the window after the first couple of episodes. And it's not like we've reached millions of listeners and we became rich and famous and stuff. But just producing that feels such like a personal achievement, and it feels really good, and it's fun, and it's nice to hang out with you every week. So I'm super happy we did it, and the pros definitely outweigh the cons. If I had to look back, would I do it again? I would absolutely do it again, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah. I'm glad you did as well, because as you just said, your first answer was basically no, or it was like, this is something I would like to do, but I don't think I have time to. And so I had basically just been like, all right, whatever. Like one day I'll do a podcast, but it just like wasn't the focus anymore. And then you went and had some nice time off. I think you went and had like 2 or 3 weeks camping.
Yep.
And cleared your mind and realized how fantastic an idea this would be, and how it was the perfect opportunity that you couldn't let go.
I kind of knew that was a great opportunity, but what I failed to see is it would actually help me with making my own course. I was like, no, I need to spend all my time doing my course. And then I was like, hang on, a big part of making a course is promoting the course and finding an audience for the course. And I'm not making that podcast primarily to find an audience for the course, but it's definitely a nice place where you can plug what you work on each episode at the end, like we do. Without feeling like spammy or harassy, and just anything that puts yourself out there and kind of creates more awareness about you and your work and your personality is helping actually with the course. So doing that 1 or 2 hours a week is actually good investment, I think.
Yeah, just enough justification to push you over the line and say, let's give it a go. And then so far it's worked out for 10 episodes. So hopefully it works out for many, many more.
And speaking of which, we can jump in our little part where we can explain what we work on. I myself am teaching my 3rd Pro Tailwind workshop in a week and a half. We actually announced the ticket sale a couple of hours before recording this. There's already 3 people that signed up, which is pretty exciting. So this one is going to be about organizing codes and styles for multiple variant UI components that you reuse. So like something like a modal window that can have different tones like danger or success or info. And then it can have different width, and it can have different easing transitions, come from a certain side or another. That's it. I'm trying to keep the course on Tailwind as much as possible. It does use React, but I'm trying to make it the concepts are the same if you are using Svelte or anything else. So I'm trying to have it framework agnostic, but once you want to have a component with props, you're going to have to choose something. I could do it in PHP and have like an include with like where you pass data. It's the same concept. Essentially, you have a component and then you say this one has this title, this body, these action buttons. When you click confirm, it runs this function that does some stuff in the background. I teach all these things, but the core approach is how to manage styles for each variant with Tailwind in a way that kind of scales up. And I'm pretty excited about this one. It's kind of, everyone knows how to compose utilities in the HTML directly, but when you start organizing it with multiple variants that sometimes conflict or clash with each other, like how to figure out how to make dynamic classes with Tailwind is quite tricky. So I'm excited for this workshop that I'm preparing now. And I can't tell you the date because it's not in my head, but I think the 6th of October. So it will be the Thursday in the most of the world, Thursday next week, but Friday morning here in Australia.
Very exciting. I saw you were going back and forth on whether you should use TypeScript or not use TypeScript. Where did you land on that one?
I have totally landed in using TypeScript because I found ways that literally I would have used React prop types to like basically the challenge is like, here are the props we want on the components, so go and implement them and style them. So I needed first I had a comment like that said we're going to add a title, which is a string, and then we're going to add action buttons, which is an object that has confirm and cancel. And then I was like, this is exactly what a type is in TypeScript, and it actually reads nicer than a text comment. So I just provided the type. Type modal props equals title string action button blah blah blah. And then when you do this, if you go to the other file where you consume the component, you start typing and then it's gonna say, oh, you want a title, right? Because there's a title, and it auto completes and it provides you all this goodness. So I found a way where the audience doesn't have to write any TypeScript ever, and it doesn't really get in the way of reading the code, and it provides so much structure. Like, for example, you have to do a style object that has a key for each. Let's say a button has 3 sizes, like large, medium, and small. And then we create a style object that kind of has different classes for these 3 variants. And then I have the object, an empty object. I have like the size classes object, which is an empty object, and it's already underlined in red. And I say, create a key for each possible variant and style it correctly. And then if the key is not one of the possible keys of the type, like medium, small, or large, TypeScript says, hey, that doesn't exist. And if you forget one, it tells you as well. So I found a way that kind of forces the learner to have the 3 correct keys in that object for TypeScript to be happy. And to me, that actually helps the learning. It's not just like, stuff getting in the way. It's literally useful. It's a way to make sure, okay, I have satisfied every possible variant in that prop. And yeah, that's so I've now I went from like, oh, TypeScript is confusing to the learner to like, I cannot imagine doing this workshop without it because of the rails that it kind of puts the learner in. So
Yeah,
definitely in that camp.
Yeah, I find that's like the most difficult thing anytime I'm trying to create any kind of content. It's always this question of like, what do I do? Like, do I use TypeScript or just JavaScript? And then the other part is like, do I style it with Tailwind or do I leave it unstyled? Yeah. And like those 2 questions always just add so much to every course or every example or anything that I want to put together. And you have people so hard on both sides of the fence. Yeah. And so, yeah, I always find it really challenging to find that balance of not too much overhead, because every time you introduce a new technology, obviously you're introducing overhead that's distracting from the course that you're trying to teach. But it sounds like in this case, it's actually helping you focus on the course. Like it's giving you hints and things that about the what you're trying to teach that's making it easier. So
my rule of thumb was like the learner should never have to write any type or TypeScript. It's literally instead of putting the types in line with the function, I have like the type above, and then so it's kind of, it's minimal impact on the readability. But yeah, I like I said, I found myself writing text comments saying what the prop should be. And then I was like, oh, maybe I should use prop type so they can see that it's actually right. And then I was like, this is more visual clutter than an actual clean type from TypeScript. Yeah. And yeah, I'm not going back. I still am myself not very advanced in TypeScript, but like I found that it's actually a really useful tool to teach other things. Whereas before I was like, it's just noise. And in a way that's similar to Tailwind, when the untrained eyes with Tailwind CSS sees noise and clutter. And then once you know these classes, you're like, oh, no, it's like information on what the UI looks like. It's great. It's like someone who put a comment, hey, this is a blue button with some padding and stuff. Yeah. And type same. Yeah. Now I've learned I find ways to write TypeScript in a way that it stays out of the way, but it provides all the nice autocomplete suggestion and tells you when you've done something wrong. And yeah, but I'm happy. Yeah.
It is nice that those 2 technologies have kind of become the default standard, I think, in some ways. Like, for a while, Flow and TypeScript were like battling it out, and then there were a whole bunch of other ones that kind of added type annotations to JavaScript. And so like previously it wasn't just like, do I use JavaScript or TypeScript? It was like, do I use JavaScript or TypeScript or Flow or something else? And with CSS it was the same with Bootstrap or Foundation or whatever. And so it's nice that Tailwind has kind of broken out ahead of the pack, I think, as kind of the go-to styling option. And so, yeah, it's a pretty safe bet going with TypeScript or Tailwind that people will have a little bit of experience with it, or even any experience that they pick up along the way is not a wasted time. Like, that is going to be a worthwhile thing to learn. But yes, it's always difficult making that call as to whether it's going to be more distracting or more helpful.
Yeah, it's
So
all about, yeah. No, I'm going to say the same thing again. We can move on. We're just going in a circle.
So I have been working on, or I haven't been working on anymore, but the most recent big thing that I worked on was this caching Superbase data at the edge course. And so I've been doing a little bit of content towards that. Obviously, the what we were talking about before with the navbar live streams, looking at different ways that I can show how cool that option is for caching. And this week, Cloudflare are dropping a whole bunch of cool new features. And so yeah, if you want to go deeper with Cloudflare, if you get excited about the new things that they're launching and want to learn more about workers and KV storage, then this is definitely the course to check out. But in the course, we look at how do you take a centralized database. So this in this case, it is Superbase, but it could be any kind of centralized data source. And so this is why I applied the same situation to the Notion API in those navbar streams that I was working on. I think basically any type of data source that is centralized or just for some reason is quite slow is the perfect opportunity to use this kind of stack where you build a caching layer that allows you to store the response that you get from that database or the data that you get from that centralized data store, store it in a cache that is also globally distributed. So a cache that is deployed to the same edge nodes that your Cloudflare workers are running on, making it super, super fast to respond to a user's request, not just, that they've done something like clicked a button, but also fetching a whole bunch of data. And so, yeah, I highly recommend you check out that entirely free Egghead course. It's only 28 minutes long, and yeah, it's an awesome solution to a very real-world problem. I'm also in the process of refreshing my SAS course that I put out on Egghead. So I think maybe a year ago or so, I released or a little bit under a year actually. Man, technology just outdates itself so quickly.
Yeah.
Because this SAS course has a whole bunch of just like it will still work end to end, but there's just like a few things that could be better. And also, I guess, just Superbase, like working at Superbase and things changing so crazily quickly. Heaps has changed in the last year, and now there's a whole bunch of stuff that that we needed to implement manually in that course that is now actually handled for you. And so I wanted to refresh my SAS course and look at all of the cool new hotness and kind of simplify the course quite a bit. Which is going to be very cool. So if there is anything that you want to learn about Superbase or about building a SAS course or Stripe or anything like that, hit me up on Twitter and let me know what you would like to see in that course, because I'm just starting. This guy. I'm just starting the process of planning it all out and building an example and working out how I can build an even simpler course. So stay tuned for that one and hit me up if there's anything specific you want to learn. I think it's time to open the bar. What do you think? At the start of this episode, Simon said we should just do an open bar because things are a little too chaotic right now with school holidays and things. And so we should just do an episode where we just start straight away into the open bar. And when I joined the episode, like the stream to record this episode, that was what the plan was we were just going to jump straight into it. And then Simon hit me with like, why don't we just quickly go through like a summary of the previous episodes that we've done. We've hit 10. It's a really good milestone. Maybe we should look at the highlights that we've done so far. And we've now been talking for like an hour. This is now probably, it's going to be a 2-parter episode again. That's great. Yeah, we have lots to talk about. It's always just fun to hang out with you.
Yeah.
But what's been happening in your world, in the casual world of Simon, the non-work world of Simon?
Yes, if you can see the title of this live stream or the podcast, you might guess, why are they talking about episodes when the title is called Skiing, Puppies, and School Holidays? So it is school holidays. They actually started on Monday, but Thursday last week was a public holiday, so everyone's been in holiday mode for a bit. Not me, I'm working, but like the family, the neighbors' families. And one thing that happened is last minute, a friend of my wife, like a colleague of my wife in the school they teach at, was going down the snow. So I live in Sydney, and there's a place called Perisher in the Snowy Mountains, which is about 6 hours drive south of Sydney, southwest. And I think it's sort of the same distance from Melbourne. It's kind of exactly between Sydney and Melbourne. Uh, and we were supposed to all, maybe he shakes, it's probably a bit longer
It's not.
from Melbourne.
I think it's. Oh, maybe it is actually. Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
it does. Maybe
Well,
once
you
you get
have
up into
Falls
the
Creek,
mountains,
which
maybe.
is, yeah. But yeah, my wife said long time ago, she was like, "Oh, we should go down to the snow for the October holiday. It's kind of or September. It's like the last weeks of the season, so there might be no snow, but we should all go as a family." And then with the puppies that we have, we can't. Everyone cannot leave the house because we're looking after them all the time. And then my wife said, "Oh, my colleague said, obviously you all can't come, but he said, does Simon want to come just with me and a couple of friends?" And first I was like, I can't do this. Like I'm doing my workshops. I haven't sold my course yet, so financially I don't know where I stand. And then also leaving the family and kids behind. And she was like, "No, Simon, when's the last time you've done something that's not directly looking after your family and the kids and stuff? And when did you go on something, a trip for yourself?" And I was like, never. I don't know. I do not know. Maybe never since we have kids. And she was like, exactly, just go. And Tom is her colleague and they're good friends. And I was like, he goes down a lot, so he knows all the slopes really well. And so on Friday morning, like literally Thursday night was the decision to go. And I said, yeah, I talked to Heather. I'm in. Let's do this. And then he said, all right, I'll pick you up at Friday morning, tomorrow morning at like 8 o'clock. And we just drive off. So I was like, okay, let's go in the back sheds. I've got some rusty like snowboard gear and stuff. And he was like, you don't need a board, don't need anything. We'll rent it out and stuff. So I just jumped in the car. We drove 6 hours, rented a snowboard and boots. And then we were planning to camp. Camping in the snow is kind of weird, but it actually, sleeping bags are quite warm. But we couldn't find a spot, but they had a cabin left, which is just like bunk beds and like a tin shed, whatever. So we got that thing with Tom and two of his friends. And snowboarded the entire Saturday, the entire Sunday, and then Monday morning we drove back. So I worked from the car a bit on Friday and worked from the car a bit on Monday. But let me tell you, every time I go skiing in Australia, which is the third time, people say, "You are Swiss, you will hate it, don't bother, it's expensive, it's crap, it's melted snow." And I have yet to have a day that I didn't absolutely love, and I was like, oh my god, this is so good. So Perisher, the resort, is actually huge. Like that guy knows it quite well. So we kept taking different lifts and doing different runs, and the entire 2 days we've done a few tracks the same, but we mostly just explored the whole thing. And
it's like multiple mountains, right? Or
yeah,
it's like multiple peaks.
Yeah, so it's actually 4 small resorts that kind of are all connected now, and it's huge. Like I grew up in there's bigger resorts in Switzerland for sure, but I grew up in like the start of the Alps. It's called the Pre-Alps. It's kind of like rolling hills before the big spiky high peaks mountains. And my hometown resort is like smaller than that Perisher connection thing. So I was like, stop downplaying and downselling this. It's actually really good. And there was tons of snow and the sun was shining the whole weekend after the first morning where it rained a bit, but then it kind of opened up. So it's like soupy, melted snow that has been rained on. But as a snowboarder, I really like that, like mushy snow. It's kind of like surfing where you can do big turns and it sprays some snow everywhere. I hate if it's icy, but as soon as it's a bit melted, it's awesome. And hey, I had a blast. Like my other worry, because it's that was Tom and his boys, like the friends, and they always like to get on the beers and stuff. And I was like, I hope we actually do snowboarding, because I haven't snowboarded in 2 years. And we ended up, yes, we went out at night, but we ended up like snowboarding from 8 o'clock when it opens till when they say last run, you have to get the chairlift, otherwise you'll have to walk around the mountain. And we've done like 2 full days. So I had my fix in terms of snowboarding. You can see my nose is very burnt here because it was very sunny and hot. But yeah, I'm so happy. And I lost kind of like half a day of work I worked from the car, but not a full day. But I came back so energized and happy and relaxed, and I think it was a good investment of my time.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is awesome. I haven't been snowboarding in a while, but I absolutely love snowboarding. And Perisher it's not quite where I learnt to snowboard. My first snowboarding trip was to Thredbo, but Thredbo is like a mountain that's right next to.
It's right next to it, yeah.
Yeah, and so
On
Thredbo
Australian
is on.
standards.
I believe it's on Kosciuszko, Mount Kosciuszko, Australia's tallest mountain. Our attempt at the tallest mountain. And and then Perisher Blue is next to it, or the collection of mountains that are Perisher Blue is next to it. So, that's where I basically learnt to snowboard. I snowboarded at Thredbo a bunch, and then snowboarded at Perisher Blue. I probably went up there like multiple times a year throughout high school, and then when I moved to Melbourne, I've been going to mountains that are a little bit closer to here. But it's been a while since I've gone snowboarding, so I'm very jealous. But being an Australian who snowboards, who then went to other places in the world to go snowboarding, I can agree that Australian snow is terrible compared to the rest of the world, especially Japan. We went to Japan for a snowboarding trip. We stayed in a place called Niseko, and it was just incredible. It just it snowed the entire time that we were there. So you would take the chairlift up the top, and then cut fresh tracks
Over
for any
what you just went.
non-snowboarders out there. That's when you're there aren't any other people's snowboarding tracks in the snow, and it's really nice because you have this fresh powder that it's a very, very nice feeling, cutting fresh tracks.
Oh, yeah.
And then by the time we get to the bottom, because it's snowing constantly, by the time you get up to the top of the chairlift again, it's all fresh snow that's
filled
fallen
up
on
again,
top of it. And so you're just cutting fresh tracks again. It was incredible snowboarding, and just it's snowing so heavily the entire time you're snowboarding. It was snowboarding on a cloud of fluffy powder. It was incredible. And then coming back to Australia, the next time we went, it was just it was raining the entire time. Not snowing, just raining. And the whole, it was just a collection of ice and slush, and was not very pleasant. Daniel Holmes has joined us and has added a comment asking if we've ever skied in New Zealand. So yes, I've also been to New Zealand multiple times. We did one trip where we went to we did snowboarding at Remarkables, which is the one close to Queenstown, and then we did a trip a little bit further into, I think we went and stayed at Lake Wanaka, and did Treble Cone and a couple of other resorts there. But yes, love snowboarding in New Zealand. New Zealand is definitely higher quality snow than here in Australia, no matter what Simon tells you.
Well,
but it's not we still have snow. It's amazing that we have snow. It would suck having to book an international trip anytime I wanted to do any snowboarding whatsoever. And apparently that might be the case in a few years, or in a couple of decades. My wife was telling me that there are predictions that some of the lower mountains are no longer going to have snow because the world is
getting warmer,
is falling apart.
Yeah, so I did not cut a single fresh track in this weekend. But yeah, if you happen to like slushy snow, which is when it's melted, so it became ice and then it melts again, and it's just like a slushy. You imagine the slushy drink and you pour it on this mountain. That's
frozen Coke. Imagine snowboarding in a frozen Coke.
Yeah, but I actually love that feeling, and in that regard, Australia is very decent. I've had a blast the whole weekend. It's actually funny because I think I was the best snowboarder of the four we were. I mean, I grew up, I had a 30-year head start of having 6 month long seasons, and they cannot catch up with this. But I was systematically the last one to arrive at the bottom, because the other guys just enjoyed doing normal turns and going quite fast. And the way I snowboard is I always look up for little jumps or little lips on the side to hit, kind of like a surfer. I always look for the next little fun thing to play around and do a 360 jump or whatever. And they would just go fairly fast down, and I'd just do all my tricks and then arrive after them. And my wife said like, "Oh, can they keep up with you?" And I was like, "Man, they're actually waiting for me every time because I just enjoy every inch of the track and go zigzag to find the next little jump." So it's fun. I can go fast if I want. Yeah.
Did you do any like through the trees, like cross country off trail stuff?
So that's another cool thing is when you live in Australia, you see gum trees. It's like the eucalyptus tree that you see everywhere. Like anywhere you are in Australia, there's always gum trees, and it's a very classic looking sort of tree. And I grew up in the culture of if you ski, you see pine trees, like Christmas trees everywhere on the mountain. That's the only sort of tree there is in any mountain I've skied in Switzerland is the pine tree. So we used to snowboard between the pine tree, and we did that, but between the gum trees. So you have this really like branchy, wide, low-hanging branchy stuff, and you can kind of get barreled ducking under. And I kept thinking, oh, maybe there's gonna be a koala in one of these trees. Like it's you have the Australian mountains look like Australia, like it's the same trees, and you hear the crows and the same birds, and you feel like you could be in Sydney, really, except for the snow part. But yeah, we did lots of tree runs, and it's good fun. I was surprised there was no rocks. I didn't touch a single rock whatsoever. Like sometimes you do a turn and you just hit like a sharp rock, because there's actually, I think there's a good meter plus of snow left. Like, you know how we had all the floods and stuff, all this rain kind of piled up in snow. And because it rained and it melted, and there's this like layer of ice between the land and the top snow. So it's actually really nice. Yeah.
Awesome.
So plenty of tree runs, plenty of jumps, hit the snow park when it's not punishing, because if you fall, you just like kind of glide into that mush. And yeah, I had an absolute blast. But I want to go to Japan one day, because even my Swiss friends, Swiss has really good snow. They said some of them went to Canada, like Whistler. They went to Alaska. They went everywhere. And when they went to Japan, they were like, this Japan is next level. It's like 3 levels higher than that. Like in terms of quality of the snow is so dry that it stays powdery and fluffy, and it just keeps, like you said, it keeps snowing, but at the same time, it's not too much. Sometimes if it snows too much, like you get bogged down, but because it's so dry and fresh, it just like magical. So I want to do that for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely ruined snowboarding anywhere else in the world for me.
You can't enjoy anywhere.
No. And Daniel is shouting out that you need to watch out for drop bears.
Yes, drop bears.
When you're snowboarding in Australia.
We actually talked about drop bears this weekend, because I was telling my friends the things that I was expecting coming to Australia would be kangaroos, koalas, and stuff. And the very first thing that I noticed is birds. Like birds in Australia are amazing. Like there's like parrots, multicolor parrots that repeat what you say and stuff that you see only in the zoo. They're like we have pigeons and crappy little grey birds in Switzerland. And in Australia, there's like the rainbow lorikeet and the cockatoos and stuff. And it's like, no one tells you that. No one in Switzerland knows that Australia has crazy cool birds. Sorry about the dog, but that's part of the podcast, the theme. And then I was telling the first night I was in the hostel, and I said, oh, I saw crazy birds and stuff. And that one guy said, yeah, that's all cool, fun and games, but you got to watch for the drop bears, man. And there's that they look like koalas, but they're this evil cousin. And if you walk at night,
got blood dripping from their mouth.
Yeah, if you walk at night under trees, they'll just drop on you, and they have these freaking claws, and it's a nightmare. And I remember having a bunch of drinks, and then walking back to the hostel, I was like ducking under trees and like, is that one? Like I was legitimately scared. And only later did I find out it's a like lifelong tradition of anyone who arrives to Australia gets into that, not a prank, but that's like a ritual of acceptance. And so I've done my duty, and the next person who arrived to the hostel, I told them to watch for drop bears, and I saw them being scared, and I was like, I've passed I've done the transfer. I am one of them now.
That's amazing. All right. Well, I think we should wrap it up there. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you all so much for joining us once again. Thank you to the people who joined us live. Lovely to see you in the comments. And once again, my name is John Myers. You can find me at johnmyers_io on Twitter.
And I'm Simon Vrashliotis. I am Simon Swiss on all things, mostly Twitter. I've just put up a comment from Daniel who said we should do a meetup at Perisher. And I think if we do that, we should have John Myers and Simon Vrashliotis being the co-hosts, and then invite all the tech community to Perisher to do some snowboarding and coding. That would be fun.
That would be incredible. And a live episode while snowboarding. We'll get those like Zoom mics, like the...
oh my God, yes.
Yeah. And
on the chairlift every time we go up.
Gear. Yeah. Oh, that would be...
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. Lock it in. A meetup and live recording of the Navbar podcast at Perisher.
Yeah,
but
Daniel's going to arrange all accommodation and lift tickets and sponsor the event.
Sponsors,
awesome.
Yep. Definitely.
We actually
like
could pull it off, maybe. That'd be sick.
Yeah. Maybe Superbase would pay for all of us to go to the snow, and if we put some Superbase stickers around, it could work. Thank you so much for joining us for another week, and we will see you again next week. Make sure you tell your friends to like and subscribe and do all the things. Follow us on Twitter. Go and subscribe and click that notification bell on our YouTube channel, and we'll see you again next week.
Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Meet up in Perisher.
I like it. I'm going to stop my audio recording because I always forget to do that, and then I almost run out of hard drive
4
space.
hours, yeah.
Thanks for joining us, Daniel. That was a lot of fun.
Yes.
We should absolutely do a meetup at Perisher. Why don't we actually do that? We could maybe next year, but we could actually do that. We could totally do a tech thing. Fuck it, let's do a whole conference. Let's do a live a tech conference. In fact, get Jed Watson involved, and we'll do React Conf Snow Edition.
It's happening.
Let's do it.
Daniel,
let's do it.
You'll be part of the organizing team for the idea.
Yeah.
No, seriously.
Are you here in Australia, Daniel? Whereabouts are you?
I think he lives in Awesome. There you go. There's a 15-second delay, so when you ask a question, you can.
Yeah, Daniel is in. Awesome. That'll be fun. But we could totally actually do this. I wonder whether they have like a conference space that would do. Oh, look, we've already got sponsors.
Yeah,
this is perfect.
I was snowboarding with my Think Mill t-shirt, and I thought just mostly to make a photo to send to everyone for fun. But the guy stopped me and he said, I have no idea what Think Mill is, but man, this t-shirt is rad. Because it's just
I love the Think Mill logo. It's so good. I actually, I had the sticker on my old laptop, that square one. I got it at ReactConf, and it just looks so cool. They've done amazingly well. Yeah. Simon, hook me up with some swag from Think Mill, and I'll get you some Superbase merch.
Can do. You're already in the Slack as a guest, so you're one step closer to getting some swag.
But yeah, sorry, Daniel. I remember now that you are up in Queensland, so that's not unmanageably far. If I'm coming up from Victoria, you're coming.
No, but we can
across
do
from
one in Queensland
Sydney.
too.
Are there? I don't think there are mountains that have snow in Queensland. Are there?
Yeah. No, it's gonna be
Surely
a
it's too
boat
warm.
cruise in Airlie Beach or some. I don't know. No, the snow, it sounds perfect because you can have the after party and the silly snowboard events competition.
This is gonna be awesome. Let's actually do this. I think Think Mill and Superbase would totally be keen to sponsor an event. It might not, it won't be everyone's accommodation or chairlifts, but it might be some pizza.
Yeah, beer and pizza, exactly, and then you buy your own tickets. So one thing I figured out is the day pass was so crazy expensive. That was $199 for one day. But because my friend has the season pass, he got this mates rates thing, so there was $81 off. So I paid $118 for each day. Wow. So it's $230, whatever. But then if you get the whole season pass, it's only $849, I think. And it's basically less than 5 days of skiing. And they say this pays for itself in 5 days. So if you think you're going to do more than 2 weekends, you actually get the season pass. And then it's totally useless, but you can use your pass in Whistler and in New Zealand and,
That's right. Yeah.
in Switzerland even. So yeah. But like I see first I was like, why would you get the season pass? There's you never know the snow condition and it's so far away and it's so expensive. But then like even after one weekend I was like, man, you do 2 of these in the year, and then if you have the season pass, you kind of like don't feel too guilty for stopping at 2 p.m. because you're not like
Yeah.
I was there. I was like, man, I'm going to ride until they kick me out because it's so expensive.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it's
yeah,
insane, the price. Like, that was something that blew my mind about going to other countries. Like, I was just used to snowboarding in Australia, but when I went to Japan, like, the best snow I've ever experienced in my entire life, it was $30 a day for, like, Australian, for a lift pass to just snowboard all day. It's incredible.
Yeah, Switzerland is it's going up every year, but when I grew up, it was like $45 for the whole day. So it's Swiss franc, but it's like with the cost of living, it's the same. That's 45 of the currency you live in. It's now it's probably close to 55 or 60, but not like 200. Like you get almost like a full week special pass.
Yeah, especially if you're staying up there, if you're paying for accommodation as well on the hill, like that's so expensive, such a crazy expensive trip.
Yeah, so I found skiing in Australia is very much elitist. Like you need to be wealthy. Like if you want to do it more than just one. Like my wife was like, you never spend any money on anything. You just wear t-shirts from Kmart and you just stay home and work from home and go surfing, which is free. She was like, just for once, go and don't worry about like eating out and having a drink and like. And I've done that for 2 days, but I was like, man, if you want to do that regularly, it's like you have to be a lawyer or doctor or it's crazy expensive.
Yeah. Daniel's saying we should do a meetup in Japan after Perisher. 100%. We've got, in fact, Tyler Shukit, who works with me at Superbase, is in Japan. He's in Tokyo, so we could get him to organize all of the things, and we'll just crash at Tyler's house. I'm sure he's fine with it.
Thanks, Tyler. Oh,
Thanks, Tyler.
It could literally be a brand of like conferences that happen in the snow with like a day. Well, Max Stoiber, the guy who wrote Style Components, who actually shout out to Think Mill. He used to be a Think Miller and he's part of the Think Mill alumni.
Like, creating Style Components, I'm pretty sure that came out of like, as in it wasn't a brand of Think Mill, but that like he was working there, getting sponsored to create Style Components, and I think Jed had quite a bit to do with the brainstorming ideas of what Style Components became.
Yep. Think Mill has a lot of things like this that you don't notice. He and a friend organized a conference where after the conference they go skiing for a weekend. It's not part of the conference, but when you get the tickets, it's like, hey, we're doing this thing where if you buy the ski combo with the ticket, and then like a bunch of speakers and attendees went to this little chalet. I assume because of Max that it's in Austria somewhere. I might be wrong, but Max lives in Vienna, I think. Well, he's all around everywhere, but that's where he's based. And I was like, I remember messaging him, said, I would kill to like participate, to just talk about code with nerds and then snowboarding. It sounds really good.
That'd be awesome.
And I don't think in the Southern Hemisphere there's anyone considering doing this. So
let's do it. Let's do it like 2 days, midweek. Maybe not a whole conference, though. It's hard to organize all those speakers and do. In fact, if Jed wants to organize it, that's fine. He did an excellent job, or the whole team did an excellent job with React Conf in Sydney. So if he could just do that, the same thing. That would be awesome.
Like I'm sure they have like conference rooms or like stuff or Threadbo is probably even nicer because the town is where the ski lifts ends, where Perisher you finish and then you have to drive half an hour to Jindabyne or whatever. We stayed in Jindabyne, which is beautiful little place by the lake.
Yeah.
But there's no real Perisher doesn't really have like a village or stuff. It's like you drive to the resort and then drive off. where
All right, we'll do
Threadbow is
Threadbow.
like straight there. Like you ski and you hit the après ski straight away, and you stay. Yeah. And we've done an hour 30 of recording, as we do.
All right. I should probably go have some lunch. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Daniel. It was fun. We'll see you at the conference / meetup / whatever we end up doing. Actually, yeah, a meetup would totally be doable if it wasn't like a whole big conference with lots of international speakers.
Yeah.
If we did a meetup or like a 2 back-to-back night meetup with like snowboarding during the day, that'd be sick.
I
That'd
would be
so
sick.
awesome.
And it's feasible, and yeah. We need, like, part of starting this podcast was like try to create a community in, like there are communities in Australia, but just like cater for that community rather than record
Yeah.
at 5 a.m. so people in the west coast of the US can comfortably follow at their work hours. We're like, no one caters for us over here. That's why we record at 11 a.m. It's almost intentionally hard for anyone not in Australia to attend.
Yeah.
And so if we can have our own meetup in Australia, that's definitely hard to reach. If you like, go to Perisher if you don't live in Australia. Even if you live in Australia, is already an adventure.
Yeah. All right.
Nice.
We'll do it next year, mid-season,
Pencil it in.
2 nights at Threadbow. We'll find out whether they have some kind of meetup room, conferencey place somewhere with a microphone and a projector that we can do talks from, and we can hang out, code, build some cool stuff, snowboard.
Gonna get a massive
interesting
think
meetup
mill and
talks.
super bass banner, and most people would be like,
Yeah.
what is what is this?
What is this?
I don't know if the tech community in Threadbow is very thriving, but
I think people would come. I think people would
oh
definitely
yeah,
come
yeah,
from Sydney
that's it.
if there was
Exactly.
like a tech-themed snow meetup. And like, as you were saying before, it is quite a privileged thing to be able to go to the snow. If any like industry is going to be able to afford that, it's probably people working in tech.
Yep. We
All
can
right.
do this. Yes. Thank you.
Have a lovely day. Enjoy the rest of your week. Thank
You
you
too.
for hanging out for another awesome episode. This was great.
Subscribe. Hit the bell.
Hit that bell.
Peace.
Peace.
Peace.